All it takes is one shocker result against Dublin, and contrary to what many people's beliefs, we are a better team than Kerry. And Cork might even be Kerry and Munster, which I won't rule out, but
What's the story, lads? It's Aaron here from GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well. It's the start of the GAA Fan TV podcast, episode number 1. This is something I've had in the works for a while now. In all honesty, I've been working to try get a decent setup, a decent, kind of home studio, if you like. I'm certainly nowhere near it, but we're going to give the podcast a go, and we're going to give it a start now and anyways, and we're going to see how we get on. Obviously, the premise of this podcast, especially going into the inter-county season, will be to discuss all things in the inter-county season. We'll be speaking to the Donegal fans, Cork fans, Meath fans, Roscommon, Kerry, all fans from around the country, previewing the season, getting their takes, their predictions and their picks on what will happen. Of course, I'll be speaking to many players, pundits, managers and everyone GAA related. Also in the camogie scene as well, and women's football, we will speak to those as well in regards to their seasons and obviously the various seasons that are taking place in those sports as well. And yeah, as I said before, this is something I've had in the works for quite a while, so I would appreciate a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, enjoy the podcast. Okay, so it's episode number 1 of the GAA Fan TV podcast. I'm glad to have Patrick here with me from GAA Zone. Now, Patrick, obviously you've been on the channel before. I was on your podcast quite early on, so I suppose it makes perfect sense for you to come on as the first guest. Obviously what I wanted to go through today is obviously speaking a bit about Donegal football. We'll touch a bit maybe even on the Donegal Championship and a few different kind of preview Donegal for this season, I suppose. So I suppose first of all, as a Donegal fan yourself, I mean, what would be your feeling going into the championship as a Donegal fan this year?
Well, Cathal McShane's injured for Tyrone, he's been kind of on and off with injuries, and then COVID hit. So, the fact that he's meant to match it, here, especially that there's no back door for Tyrone, it gives that bit of a boost, at home. Now, there's, the fact, it's behind closed doors in September and late October, it's not going to be full fans or whatever, but they definitely, Donegal are used to the Ballybuffet pitch. So yeah, I definitely think, we'll beat Tyrone, and we'll get past over Derry, and Monaghan are kind of, they don't really have any peak players. A lot of their players are quite young, and a lot of them are kind of late 20s, early 30s. So I think we're kind of more it's time for Declan Bonner to do the 3 in a row. The thing Jim McGuinness never could do in Ulster.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I suppose obviously that first game against Tyrone, I mean, it's quite mad, isn't it, to draw Tyrone in the first game, especially when, Donegal and Tyrone probably 2 of the top 6 in the country in many ways. Do you think it's fair that both of those 2 counties have actually drawn each other at the start in Ulster, whereas maybe some teams down in Munster and Leinster probably have much easier routes to the final?
Well, it's a lot tougher than Dublin's opening game against Westmeath, but we definitely, but that gets us maybe. Yeah, it's a bit tough, but it's the luck of the draw. Ulster GAA can't kind of favour teams, they kind of have to treat Antrim with the same respect as Tyrone. But the tough thing is, we're going to have to be a full peak for that game against Tyrone, and then we might be a bit tired out, presuming we won Ulster, and then once we get to the semi-finals against Dublin, as we're set to face the Leinster champions. So I think that's the big concern, while Dublin, you have a bit of a cruise for Leinster. You said a bit on my podcast, it's a bit of a kind of a pre-season tournament in a way. So, yous will start to peak against Donegal, which will be, I can see how tough it can be.
Now, I suppose obviously playing Tyrone in that first game, I mean, it's a tough matchup. Obviously, Cathal McShane is going to be injured, as we were just mentioning, but I mean, would there be anyone else on that Tyrone side that maybe you'd be a bit wary over? Do you think there's any players there maybe that could cause you some problems that you wouldn't be expecting?
Well, they've this good dentist on their team called Tiernan McCann.
Very well known.
Very good, very good player. Craig get him. Definitely. Niall Morgan at the kickouts definitely can't be undermined. There's new kind of black card laws, which kind of means that Peter Hart could actually be getting suspension. So if he alters his game, definitely, Peter Hart might be the man worth stopping for Tyrone. I think, I think, out of those, Colin Kavanagh too, I think, he'll be probably the last player I mentioned there. Even though he's getting a good old age now, he's still the man that needs to be stopped for Tyrone. And, if we throw enough men on him, you never know.
Yeah, I suppose without Cathal McShane there, I definitely fancy Donegal most likely to beat Tyrone, I'd say. Now, obviously, if you do go through and you do beat Tyrone, obviously it's Armagh probably most likely in the next round. There's a lot of hype around Armagh at the moment. I mean, obviously they've a lot of good kind of young players coming through. Rian O'Neill.
Yeah, but what do you call it? Rian O'Neill, he's a brilliant footballer, yes, but he gets a lot of hype because he plays for Crossmaglen, a good club team and all the rest. There was a Trench Cup final there 2 years back, where my own club player, John Campbell, I don't want to kind of boost my own club, who can't get in the county team, outscored Rian O'Neill, who was on for Letterkenny AT, and then Rian O'Neill was on the Dundalk team. So he's not, there's club players in Donegal that are outscoring him. So I don't know, there's a big there's still question marks, as he's a brilliant player, but he's not in the same region as David Clifford or maybe even Niall O'Donnell or Oisín Gallen. I wouldn't really put him around that kind of category, maybe.
Yeah. And I suppose then obviously you have Monaghan as well, who obviously have Banty McEnany back in the the managerial hot seat. They're looking pretty good as well in the league so far this season. So, I mean, more than likely the way the Ulster Championship and the way it's kind of let out, it's more than likely probably going to be whoever wins Donegal, Tyrone, and then Monaghan in the final. So, would you look at Monaghan as maybe the biggest kind of challenge after Tyrone?
Yeah, I would put them as the biggest challenge. Now, I think Monaghan might be making the same mistake, Mayo would have made maybe back in 2019, where they threw the kitchen sink at the league, throwing out all the best players, and maybe came to championship, wouldn't be great. But you don't know what it could be like with all this big break. It going around, that could be completely altered. But, now, can Monaghan get to the final? There's still question marks over that because you've Cavan in their first game. Now, in the kind of preliminary round, and they knocked Monaghan out last season. And then you also have Fermanagh. Now Fermanagh aren't, especially under Racing McMenamin, they've gone downhill, and there's one or two quality players they have, but they knocked them out 2 years ago. So they have the two teams that knocked them out of Ulster in the last 2 years, and that's side of the draw. So I'm not too confident Monaghan could get to the final, but they're definitely the favourites, and, you shouldn't be taking them for granted. And Conor McManus is still one of the best forwards in the country.
Yeah, without doubt. And I watched a bit of Darren Hughes for Scottstown. I think I know Scottstown. Yeah, he's a good. And you have Rory Beggan in there as well. So definitely Monaghan more than likely would kind of be, I'd say, one of the closest challengers anyway to Donegal this year. Well, I suppose obviously if you do come through Ulster, you've probably got. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to the rest of Leinster, but it's definitely more than likely going to be Dublin anyway in the semi-finals. So, I mean, how would you feel going into that one? Because obviously Donegal in the past few years, kind of in the big crunch matches like Mayo last year and Tyrone the year before, haven't quite been able to get over the line. So, how would you kind of feel going into that game against Dublin?
It's tough, but this is kind of, I think it's going to be Donegal's chance to prove. 2014 was 6 years ago. As much as a good result it was, there comes a time where we need to grow past 2014 and realize, get back down there. I think this game here, we can definitely beat them. Especially if every player is fully fit. you need to even remember we got a draw against Kerry last season without Owen Van Gallagher. Now, there was a lot of sloppy play at the back from Donegal that day in that draw against Kerry, and if we had someone like Owen Van Gallagher, as a number 6, he really holds the centre quite well, as a number 6 should, So I think if we have it fully fit, we can definitely, give Dublin a challenge. I think it's a 60-40 challenge. 60% in Dublin's favour, 40% in Donegal's favour.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose from a Dublin point of view, there definitely is a lot of change that has taken place in Dublin this year. I mean, obviously you've now Jack McCaffrey, you've now Jim Gavin, Bernard Brogan retired. I know Bernard Brogan wasn't playing too much last year, but he's still a big player to bring off the bench. So I suppose, you never know, Donegal, you might just pull off the upset, especially with the year that's in it.
But I definitely think Woodycoat, if Desi Farrell might be manager, but he has Jason Sherlock still in the backroom team, isn't he?
Yeah, Jason Sherlock's still there.
The Jim Gavin lad. Before Donegal, Woodycoat beat Dublin. Dublin could be playing a Leinster Championship game or game, and Jim Gavin would be sitting on the bench reading a book. Kind of use were a complacent team back then, and then kind of shook up Dublin. So I don't know what kind of approach is Desi Farrell going to take. Is Desi Farrell going to be like 2013 Jim Gavin, sitting over the book, not really paying attention, and not really giving it 100%? It's hard to know.
Yeah, it is a hard one to know. I mean, Desi, I think he's from the same school of thought in many ways as Jim Gavin. I mean, he played in 1995, managed the under-21s, went through the same processes as Jim Gavin. So I suppose we'll obviously have to wait and see, I suppose. Now, obviously, we'll speak a bit about Donegal and the league, because obviously these two league matches are taking place before the All-Ireland Championship. And obviously, for Donegal, there's not really too much on the line. There's no National League final. You're not going to get relegated. But interestingly enough, you are playing Tyrone in one of those games. So what do you think that's going to be like?
You'll have it two ways. I don't really know. As both Declan Boner and Mickey Hart's going to throw out, are probably going to throw out a younger squad, or you might have it a situation that they want their players in full fitness, and nothing like a local derby thrown in full intensity might bring them to the next level. It's hard to know. I think, but if you have them as maybe, I don't know, second, most likely probably a second string team. So Tyrone beat Donegal in the under-20 final in Ulster. So if that's anything to go by. Yeah,
I suppose there is. I mean, I kind of have a funny feeling that both teams will go full strength, to be honest, because they'll want to get players up to match sharpness and match fitness. But I do think at the same time, either side, they won't want to, force their full hand. They won't want to just completely, give away their game plan. Because obviously Donegal last season, they kind of reverted back to the blanket defence in that game a bit against Tyrone, which they hadn't been doing up till that. And that kind of, stuttered Tyrone in that game. So it will be interesting to see nonetheless how it all does pan out in that one. I suppose kind of, if we touch a bit on some of the Donegal players, then obviously everyone kind of looks at Michael Murphy as the main sort of the main influence in that Donegal team. But I suppose maybe that's kind of a bit naive coming from a Dublin point of view. But I suppose, would there be anyone else in that Donegal side that you'd look at this year and think they could be the game changer? I mean, if you were going to go and beat the likes of a Dublin, who do you think could be the big difference?
Yeah, well, I think it's questionable, even against Fermanagh or even Cavan in the Ulster final, that Oisín Gallen didn't start any games. He always comes off the bench and makes sense. I think it could definitely be, even if there's an injury to someone like Paddy McBurdy or something, it's definitely Oisín Gallen's year to shine. It's his for the taking. And you look at even Niall O'Donnell is really coming in strength. If you're watching any of the club football and going to go on TG4, you're seeing, Niall O'Donnell's like the big man kind of for St. Eunan's now, only in his early 20s. He's probably one of their best players. So yeah, those two would probably be the big ones. And player that wasn't involved last year, I'll go for Andrew McLean, the Kilcar player. Usually plays as maybe a number 6 for county level, playing the half-back line, plays a half-forward at club level. But yeah, he actually showed, he was probably actually my man of the match in that Kilcar St. Eunan's game. If anyone was watching it on TG4, made a lot of good runs, is always on the centre, can very much maximise the space. I definitely think we'll be seeing a lot of him in 2020.
Yeah, and I suppose getting on your point then about Oisin Gallen, obviously he was most likely, I think he was being scouted by Australia, wasn't he, before the whole COVID situation. So how much of an advantage do you think it is to have him in the squad, obviously, for the inter-county season?
Well, we see with the likes of Tyrone and all the rest, they have all these players off the bench that can go and make a difference, and even, Dublin bringing off McMenamin and all the rest. We need a strong bench to kind of cooperate, and I think, he's definitely a good player, and definitely, Division 2, 3, 4 teams, he'd get into all their teams, no bother starting, and I think, he's probably a bit unfortunate that he was born in a county stacked with so much talent, but I think, we'll see him play a good bit.
Yeah, and I suppose obviously the Donegal Football Championship you were touching on kind of Kilcar there in their match versus St. Eunan's. Now, obviously this weekend is the Donegal Football Championship quarterfinals. So, I suppose in general, who would kind of be your your main pick to probably go ahead and win the county championship this year in Donegal?
Well, if Kilcar get the home neutral venue thing, I think Kilcar definitely. I think they'll edge it out in a way. Niamh Connell too. They definitely they're bringing their momentum from their Ulster final appearance last year. They can't be underestimated. Neither can Gweedore, obviously. Because they're still full strength. You still even have Kevin Cassidy performing 49, but they're not overrun. And they've they have a very good young team too, and St. St. Eunan's too, but I think they're a little bit too young. They had 15 debutants last year. I think this isn't their year. They might get to the final, but but once they get going, they'll become like Donegal's very own version of someone like Kilcoo or Crossmaglen, that kind of team, that's always going to want it the odd year they won't. I think that's what they'll turn into with this young lad, but we're just going to be lucky that we have a competitive football championship at the moment.
And obviously Patrick McBrearty of Kilcar, I mean, he's a very good footballer indeed, and obviously last season he probably didn't have quite as good a season as he did the year previous. So what are you kind of expecting to see of Paddy McBrearty this year? Do you think he'll be back to his best, or do you think he'll still, he was doing quite well, to be fair, in the last few games of the championship last year?
Yeah. Look. If he stays fit, he'll prove once again. People think it's hard to believe that he is actually only 27. He was about 19 winning the All Ireland. And he was starting all the games and all the rest. But he definitely, I think, he's probably going to be the future captain when Michael Murphy leaves. But definitely, I think if he has a good year, he's getting an All-Star.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he's definitely one of the players, I think, from a Dublin point of view, that if Dublin do play Donegal in that semi-final, that I'll be looking at to try. If Dublin keep him quiet, I think we definitely have a chance. So I suppose then, would your pick then to win the county championship in Donegal, would that be Kilcar then? Do you reckon? I'm
slightly edging it towards Kilcar, but they're not that. I'm gonna tough but I think they'll get it next year, because they'll get this year because they're determined, because they haven't won it about 2 or 3 years, and they know there'll come a year where St. Eunan's will be unstoppable.
Absolutely. And I suppose, has there been any footballers in the championship that you've looked at that maybe hasn't been on the Donegal team, or that's kind of knocking on the door? Has there been anyone that's impressed?
Well, there has been a few on the Donegal team maybe that have been knocking on the door in a way, but I'd probably have to go maybe Connor Morrison played a good bit of league games, and he also plays for St. Units. I definitely give Connor Morrison a bit of game time. He's definitely had to drop out because he wasn't getting selected. But I think McGee's legs are getting old, and they don't have Frank McGlynn anymore to bring on fullback. So I definitely think there's a place for Connor Morrison on the team. So I think Declan Bonner would be ringing him up soon enough, and I'm actually, I think it's, I'm dropping down the intermediate for level maybe for my own club now, but a player I think has been performing very well as a fullback too is Jack O'Loughlin. Great speed, always digs the ball in from deep. Brings carries as far as the midfield, as a number 3, which is quite impressive. And he actually won the award as the best hurler in Donegal last year. But I think he might be tempted to swap the small ball for the big balls.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, when we were speaking off camera there, you were mentioning obviously Buncrana, your local club, very close to winning the intermediate championship potentially. What would you kind of say about that? Do you think you will win it, or?
Yeah, I do, because even though we got promoted from junior last year, we probably should have never got promoted. We probably should have never even been there. We were actually favourites 2 years ago to win the intermediate, so it was a bit of it was probably the bigger shock is that we were playing junior football than that we were doing so well at intermediate. But look, you're looking at our biggest opposition is Cloughaneely, but and they're depending on Jason McGee's team. So I think it's a coin toss between Buncrana and Cloughaneely. And even with penalties, I can definitely see I could definitely imagine a Donegal intermediate final going to penalties with me and all the rest. And we won the Ulster Junior semi-final last year in penalties. So, coin toss between Buncrana and Cloughaneely.
Yeah, and you never know. If you get up to senior level, I mean, it's been done in the past. We've seen clubs that have gone up and given it a good go. What do you reckon? Do you reckon these would give some of the big boys a run for their money, or how would you say it?
We're not. There'll be players watching it, but I think we can all admit we're not near the level of St. Eunan's. We're not near the level of Kilcara. We're not near the level of Niamh Conn. We're not near the level of Gweedore. But every other team, are we able to beat them? Probably. Killybeag's beatable, Glenfin beatable, St. Noel's beatable. They're all beatable opposition. We beat some of these teams in the league, and there's teams like Dunlow and Mulford. They could get relegated and stuff so. And Turman, some teams that don't even have any county players, and that means that we definitely give a good rattle to, and maybe a semi-final if the draw gets lucky, but we'll never win it.
Yeah, no. Well, I suppose best of luck, most definitely with the intermediate championship. Anyway, I'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully Buncrana can do well and do something up there. I suppose kind of getting into the last couple of things to speak about here. I suppose if you were to give any kind of predictions for Donegal in 2020 in the county season, what would you say?
Winning the All Ireland. I'm not going to say it. I know it's all it takes is one shock result against Dublin. And contrary to many people's beliefs, we are a better team than Kerry. And I Cork might even be carrying Munster, which I won't rule out. But but then we'd have to play. Then it'd likely be a Galway v Cork semi-final, but we'd probably beat. We are a better team than Galway. There's still Padraig Joyce's team are still too young, I think, maybe. So I definitely think it's going to be a green and gold Christmas.
I suppose. Well, we'll see what happens anyway. But so would you say then that Donegal are probably, the second best team in the country then, behind Dublin? You think you'd be confident enough to say that they're better than Kerry and Galway?
Yes, we're the outside favourites, and but yeah, we had a few injuries which kind of cost us in the Super 8, and definitely, if it was the traditional structure of no back door and all the rest, we probably would have got to the All Ireland final the last 2 years, but but you can't make excuses. But hopefully we can see it out.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be interesting. I suppose a lot depends on Galway as well, because I look at them as kind of outsiders in many ways. Galway were looking very good in that league campaign, and if they can continue some of the same momentum that they had, it'll be. But then again, like I feel like if Donegal were to beat Dublin, like even if you were playing Galway in the final, I reckon you'd beat them. Like you can't. I just couldn't see a situation like 2014 where you beat Dublin and then didn't win the All Ireland. I think whoever beats Dublin this year wins the All Ireland. In my opinion, that's what I think.
But yeah, well, I think I definitely think Patrick Joyce, very good manager. Within the next 3 to 4 years, yeah, look, Galway will win an All Ireland. I am confident that their footballers will. But most of the team were the team that played in the under-20 championship last year, and good. And what do you call them? Are they making the same mistakes as Mayo, throwing the kitchen sink at the league? Winning the league championship. But so yeah, it's definitely that. But like Galway suffer the same thing as us. Like they're going to have to peak in Connacht, whether they play Mayo or Roscommon. On like ourselves, but like ourselves. I think they suffer from the same problems.
Yeah, no, that is definitely very true. And I suppose in general, some predictions for the All Ireland in general. Obviously, you said there you think Donegal will win the All Ireland, but I suppose Leinster, obviously, I mean Dublin, it does not.
You can't.
Yeah,
it's pointless asking me that question. Unless I'm a very optimistic Kildare me fan, I'm not going to say any different. It's not going to be any different. But yeah, look, I think we will. Munster. This here is going to get the blood boiling of a lot of people watching, but it's going to the rebel county.
You think so, really?
I definitely. Yeah. I had GAA Statsman on the podcast there, and he made a very good point that I think he says the Cork's strongest position is forwards. That always favours the underdogs. It always favours the underdogs that you're stronger in attack. Even Donegal back in 2014, it's always going to favour you. And I think Cork will definitely get it. And they know even if Cian O'Connor and their backroom team, and he caused that New Bridge or Nowhere upset. So definitely don't tick them off. And Galway for Connacht. I think they have a better manager in Patrick Joyce, and Mayo, they're not really that good a team. They lost 3 games last year and got the same final. As much as what people say, they're not a good team. And Roscommon, they only won it because Galway were underperforming. And I think they kind of got the look off the bat. And I'm not saying Roscommon are a bad team. Conor Cox, one of the best, and Enda Smith would be some of the best footballers in the country. But yeah, I think it's going to go to Galway, Cork, Donegal, and Dublin.
Yeah, interesting nonetheless. I suppose I'd agree with you when you said about Mayo. Anyway, I think Mayo, they had their opportunity in many ways. Like for a couple of years there, I think they were knocking on the door for a long time in the All Ireland. And I think when you continuously reach final after final and don't get over the line, I think it's eventually gonna catch up with you. And I think Andy Moran not being there anymore. Well, he could still play. Who knows? I mean, he looked great in that game versus Brafey.
I think was it changed to Stapleton or someone that was saying maybe he should be brought in even for the shorter season off the bench. He has his late 40s. What is he like?
Yeah, I think he's definitely mid-30s as far as I'm aware. Anyway, I think he's late 30s nearly.
Well, no, he was 37 last year when he retired, so he's 38, which is his legs are carrying on, and but I definitely think if he goes, there can definitely, maybe you can't rule him out, but I definitely can't see Mayo winning Connacht this year.
Yeah, it could be an option off the bench to bring him on, maybe in the kind of the closing stages of games like they did in previous seasons. But I think his injuries will probably be the big kind of difference. And I think for Mayo in general, they haven't won a Connacht Championship since 2015. So, backdoor is kind of their bread and butter, and obviously there is no backdoor this year. So
they've turned into Connacht's version of Tyrone. It's but it kind of Mickey Hart's both a GAA legend status out of the backdoor. What do you call it? Funny enough, I was speaking to Colin Boyle. I was interviewing him there back in January for my own website, and he said or something that they're not they'd rather won the Connacht Championship than won the league. You know, this was after the draw against Donegal, and Mayo actually looked like they had a chance, but now, you know, they kind of would be lucky to survive.
Absolutely. And I suppose then in general, I suppose just kind of wrap things up. Obviously, you have your own podcast. We spoke about that kind of when you were on the channel before. So, who would you say has been your favourite guest on the podcast, other than me, of course? No, but in all honesty,
I've had my fair share of interesting guests, but I'm gonna go for the most probably lesser known guest I actually had on the podcast. I thought Darragh Kelly, you know, was very interesting talking about it, but I'm gonna go for Jessica Rush. You know, she's she doesn't even play County Camogie, but she's the captain of the East Belfast Camogie Club, and I just thought it was very interesting. You know, there was this club, neutral colours, did their slogan in Irish, English, and Ulster Scots. You know, this very inclusive club, and she was coming in, what he called, just kind of talking about, you know, how this new club kind of trying to break down sectarian barriers and trying to, you know, be history. Now they haven't won a game, not even their footballers, lady footballers, Camogie, not now. But I just think it's something in 50 years' time we look back at. I could probably look back at saying, look, I was speaking to her like when this whole great project started, you know, and I think, you know, East Belfast is the start of it. You know, you'll have a club on the water side in Derry, maybe even different unionist parts, you know, and I think it's definitely something, you know, that's good, that there'll probably be that could be taught in history classes. I wouldn't say that I couldn't say the rest about interviews like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like with Belfast and Antrim in general, I think, like, you know, the closer we can get towards having more clubs in East Belfast, having more GAA activity in general, like Casement Park as well.
In East Belfast, there is not taking the whole Belfast on the situation. East Belfast GAA has an catchment area of 11 secondary schools and 23 primary schools. Now that's massive. Like, that's probably the biggest catchment area out of any parish in the whole country. So, like, definitely, you know, if they break down sectarian barriers, you know, there could be a new monster in Belfast.
And there definitely is a lot of potential there. Like, I was in Belfast not too long ago, and I remember actually speaking to someone over there, just a regular person in the pub or whatever. And he was a, you know, proud Belfast man, but proud GAA fan as well. And he was, you know, we were talking about all stuff like Casement Park, everything. He was speaking about some of the Antrim players and different players coming through, and they are, you know, very passionate about Gaelic football and hurling in those parts. So it certainly would be great to see someone like Antrim competing alongside the likes of Donegal and Tyrone, and for Casement Park to be up and running, because I think it'll be very refreshing for the GAA as well.
Yeah. It definitely would be very, very refreshing. You know, I think it's definitely, you know, well, as Donegal man, I don't like to see a new monster and that, you know, but the Antrim population, you know, is actually 800,000 people, you know, which is, you know, it's quite close to Dublin now. You know, it's if the whole of Ireland was the one country, I don't want to get political, but Dublin wouldn't be a primate city if that became the case. Like, so yeah, maybe.
Yeah, who knows? It's definitely one worth keeping an eye on. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. So, cheers, Patrick. Yeah, it was good to have you on. Thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far in the video, you are an absolute legend, and I really appreciate it. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share this out to as many people as possible to hopefully continue the growth of the channel and get it out to as many people as possible. As I said before, the podcast, we're going to be doing this hopefully every week, sometimes even twice a week. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to interviewing players, managers, fans, and really getting a wide, diverse opinion across the channel instead of just me. So hopefully we can keep it going, keep it ticking over. And yeah, without further ado, lads, I'll see you later. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, and I'll see you later.